Okay, hold on. Okay. Sure. These mics are super sensitive. No, just but if we had it on right now, they would pick up anything. So you Congress put up a couple of counselors. Okay, all right. Oh, I don't want to lose you yet, man.
Mike, tomorrow night is gonna be a late night, so just letting you know ahead of time.
Tomorrow's gonna be a late night?
I think so.
One carafe or two?
Yeah, two carafes, yeah. If you want. Looks like it might be a long night. We got a lot of committee reports and.
Yeah, but I think they're lead to a draw. I think we can do a lot of bundling.
Oh, I hope so. Hope we can
Yeah.
do some bundling, yeah.
Do some bundling. I'll give you a heads up to hit that green button right in front of you. You got it. All right. Okay, and just, I did read the prior minutes, and they actually came out good. Okay, so, all right. All right, so, and okay, good evening, everybody. This is the May 1st, Monday, May 1st, meeting of the Development and Governmental Relations Subcommittee of the Holyoke City Council. I'm the chairman. With me is Councilor Peter Tallman to my left, Councilor Michael Sullivan to my right. If I could get a motion to take up number one, please.
I'll take up item number one, approval of previous meeting minutes.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Under discussion, that Ryan did a really nice job with the minutes. The summary came out this afternoon. I'm pretty well satisfied.
I'll make a motion to accept the approval of the meeting minutes from the last meeting.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, if I could get a motion taken over two, please.
Make a motion to take up item number two.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, number two, ordered that the Holyoke City Council invite the Honorable Nick Cochi, Hampden County Sheriff, to a future meeting of the DGR Committee. And wouldn't you know it, by happenstance, we have the Honorable Nick Cochi sitting in front of us. Sheriff, it's a real pleasure to have you, really is.
Well, thank you very much, councilors. I really appreciate being here today.
Joining us is the Honorable Joe McGivern. So we got a lot of honors around here. No, you're
good to see you,
You're
Joe.
right on time, Joe. So Sheriff, this is something we started here in City Council of 3-4 years ago. I can't remember now. And really the point is to bring other elected officials, stakeholders. So we've had with us state reps, state senators. We had the president of HCC in last month. Really great to have her, Christina Royal.
Sure.
Just folks that are a really important stake in the city. Wanted to come and meet us for one, and then wanted to see this beautiful city hall. But really, the Hampden County Sheriff's Department has the tentacles they reach in all 23 cities and towns in the county, but none more so than Holyoke. So we're really honored to have you with us. Joining us also is Councilor Diaz-Lopez. Councilor, thank you for coming. So Nick, why don't you introduce yourself, talk a little bit about your administration. I'm sure you're going to get questions on. The number one topic is probably opioids,
Sure.
but I know I want to talk about a little bit all the great jobs, all the crews coming in Holyoke with the cleanups and all that. And
That's right.
And just your presence in the city and the county in general, what your plans are. So the floor is yours, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and good evening to all our citizens of Holyoke. Very, very proud of the work the Hampden County Sheriff's Department is doing in the city of Holyoke. If we look back, we look at Eddie Case and the work he's doing with the Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative. Eddie's such a driving force at the Sheriff's Department and a proud Holyoker, and doing the work right down targeting South Holyoke, but it has grown to go citywide. We are also involved with the SSYI grant and the work we're doing with the city of Holyoke. We have 2 crews, as you mentioned, Counselor, in the city of Holyoke with the Holyoke Housing Authority, and the work that we're doing is very productive in the housing and renovations. I would say the grounds crew type of work that we're doing. We were also there at the ready for the Holyoke Day Parade, Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade. We, lucky for us, we get hit with a snowstorm right before the parade, but what a fantastic job the city of Holyoke did, your DPW, and the whole events for that weekend. Just so proud to be part of it. And then just looking at the business that we have down on Jackson Street. Our involvement in Holyoke, it's very entrenched. It's very important to us. Sheriff Ash, my predecessor, was such a great friend to Holyoke, and I just, over the campaign for me, I think, I think it was got to be 3 years. I was just so well received in the city of Holyoke, and I'm very grateful. I'm so excited to move forward and work with the local city officials. Let me give you some statistics that I think are just important to the citizens of Holyoke, to your mayor, and to all the officials here in the city. Number one thing I want to let you know is I met with the mayor about 8 months ago, and he asked me to bring statistics from when he became mayor in office. And to his credit, and to the credit of the police chief and to the police department and all the people in Holyoke, the amount of people coming into incarceration at the Ludlow facility for men and the Chicopee facility for women has continued to decrease every single year. And I think that that's a very important statistic to look at and be very proud of the work the men and women are doing here on behalf of the city of Holyoke. There were 820 releases to Holyoke in 2015 and 2016. So a total of 820 people were released back to the city of Holyoke. 465 of them were pretrial. They came to us, they were waiting trial. They never came back adjudicated to a sentence. They were released right from either court. We had 355 that were sentenced that came back to Holyoke. The releasing cohort consists of 121 of them were women and 699 were men. 74% of those released identified themselves as Hispanic. 54% were ages 25 to 40. Less than 8% were under the age of 21. 59% had no high school diploma or equivalent, and when they come to jail, we work diligently on helping them achieve those certificates. The most common pretrial charge, unfortunately, and we're going to talk about it again, is drugs, 33%, and then the domestic violence was 18%. The most common sentenced charge were drugs at 38% and property at 23%. Of those sentenced for possession or distribution of drugs in 2015, it was 69%. For heroin, it was 50%. For cocaine, for heroin it was 69%, and for cocaine it was 50%. That's what you get, and then you'll have an overlap of dual charges. In 2016, 80% were for heroin, 80%, 40% for cocaine. In the 2 years, only 9 people in the city of Holyoke were sentenced for marijuana. 7 of those were for distribution. 58% of the sentenced offenders were released from a lower security setting, which is very important when it comes to our reentry efforts and giving people the opportunity to come back to the city of Holyoke, come back with a job, with a home plan, comfortable getting into their wraparound services so they can go to their mental health or their health care appointments or their substance abuse appointments. It's a very big indicator and piece of a successful reentry in a person who's going to be successfully staying out of prison and not coming back. In 2015, the sentence cohorts included 16 from the Department of Corrections, 11 federal that were reentry participants, and in 2016, there were 9 from the Department of Corrections and 6 from the federal government. The prominent risk factors that people came to us when we did their assessment when they came to us from Holyoke, they were using substance abuse, they were criminal associates, adult criminal histories they had, and their unemployment rates were extremely high. Approximately 50% of them had a juvenile history, 52% in 2015, and then 48% in 2016. What do these statistics mean? What they mean is that the work that we're doing at the Hamden County Sheriff's Department and working collectively with the City of Holyoke and the Police Department and the wraparound service agencies in the district court and probation is that we are targeting exactly where these high numbers are coming in. So we're looking at the heroin epidemic, the opioid crisis. We're looking at the substance abuse issue and the distribution and the selling and the domestic violence type issues. Somebody comes to jail, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to get into a mandatory training. And we're going to talk to them about their domestic violence issues if they have them. We're going to talk to them about substance abuse issues. We're going to talk to them about where they're going to go when their release date comes up. Do they have a place to go? Where are they going to work? Because if we don't provide them an opportunity to make some money when they get back into the community, I can assure you where they're going to go. And that's going to be right back to that street corner or right back to that group of friends that embraced them and supported them before they got incarcerated. So it's very important for us to continue to follow the bouncing ball, understanding what is driving the numbers that are coming into our institution. And the numbers that are coming into our institution from Holyoke really do not differ except on just a different proportional level to the type of crimes, the male-female percentages, to the 23 cities and towns throughout Hamden County. So very, very proud of the work that the men and women at the Sheriff's Department are doing on behalf of the City of Holyoke, but more importantly, very proud and complimentary to what the City of Holyoke has done in protecting their streets, in getting people the help that they need, and working collectively with a collaborative effort on attacking the issues that face the city. So I'd be open for any questions.
Sheriff, thanks a lot for all that, and I was remiss. I'm glad you brought up Sheriff Ash too, because he was a great friend too of Holyoke and all of us really. So, and I know you're going to do well in following his footsteps. Councilors, questions? Sure. Councilor Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Sheriff, in all these numbers and statistics, can you tell me, is there any tracking of how many of these are veterans with the substance abuse problems coming into the system?
That's a great question, Counselor, and I just had a veterans roundtable at the Sheriff's Department, brought every main veterans group together, and we discussed our veterans. And with the Veterans Court here and under the tutelage of Judge McLeod and Judge Walsh, along with Probation Chief Sean McBride, what you have now is a sheriff from Hamden County jumping on board and recognizing that our men and women who are coming back from tours of duty are coming back to us with severe, severe issues and trying to self-medicate. As of right now, we have about 27 people incarcerated that have a veteran status, 25 males, 2 females. We have a population of 920 males, so you can see that the percentages are very low, but they're low because the drug court, which is diverting substance abuse offenders, the Veterans Court is also becoming a very important role in helping divert our veterans to treatment beds rather than incarceration, hard jail cells. So I'm going to be a big proponent working with the Veterans Court. We have a great volunteer base there, which I'm sure that you know of, and it's right across the street. And the round table came together, and what we found out is we owe it to our veterans. We cannot dismiss the crimes that they committed. However, we have to help them because they gave everything they had to the country. It's our obligation and responsibility to give back whatever we can to help them get beyond this addiction, this self-medication, and back on a path that we know that they would be very proud of.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Councilor McGivern?
I think the Veterans Court is a good example, just one example, but a very good example. And I think Councilor Sullivan's question, and I believe, Mike, that the numbers of the Veterans Court shouldn't be judged for a year or so down the road when we have something to compare with. But so far, the work in progress has been very positively received. The sheriff and I were at a workshop last week too that talked about bringing a person through the criminal justice system, a much broader workshop that included what happens with the jails, what happens with from the arrest, right on down through the court system itself, the pretrial, the detention, the probation, the possible probation, if that's going to be it. And I think more important, brought us together with a lot of social service agencies that we've been talking about in different perspectives in this chambers that want to do nothing but help that, especially that person that gets through the system, but to help that person be able to become a more productive person. I think, the sheriff is kind of indicating the Holyoke Police Department and law enforcement's done a great job of combating crime, and I think we all know that's true in Holyoke, and that's part of the reason for the reduction of numbers. But I think the other reason for the reduction of numbers is what the sheriff is talking about, and that's preparing someone for reentry, giving them the opportunity for a job, trying to get them away from the peer association, which we found out is a very high contributing factor to people especially people who repeat crime. And the former district attorney used to say 7% of criminals commit 70% of the crime in Hampden County. And you think about that, you say, oh, how is that possible? It's repeat offenders over and over and over again. And I think Sheriff Ash and now Sheriff Kochi recognize that you can't just put someone back out in the street without some type of a plan. The after service, Nick, how is it? After incarceration service?
Incarceration support services, yeah.
In probation, we work with that closely, and that's a tremendous program. I wore both hats last week, Mr. Chairman. I don't usually get to do that during the day, but I was able to be there both as a city councilor and as a probation officer, and the sheriff was one of our opening speakers, and it was just a tremendous workshop. But Sheriff, I just want to say, thank you for, in a very short period of time, I know it's been your career, but to take over the helm as quick as you did and to make that transition so smooth from, I think David said, one of the greatest sheriffs that we've known because, well, not because he's the only sheriff we ever knew, but because he earned it. And thank you for jumping in, and thank you for recognizing Holyoke's needs as part of it.
Well, thank you, Counselor. And that was a tremendous training. We should all know how fortunate we are here in the city of Holyoke to have a Judge McLeod and a Judge Walsh. The progressiveness, the understanding, the foresight, and the willingness to pilot programs. It's really what it takes to move a city or a town into another direction. The same old just isn't working anymore. And when you look at this opioid crisis, and I know we're going to go there, Mr. Chairman, this isn't new. And what frustrates me the most, being somebody who's in the correctional business for 24 years, is when I started back in 1993, the opioid crisis was at our hands. It was at our fingertips. We didn't identify it. We didn't recognize it. We didn't treat it as an illness. We treated it as a behavior. And that the men and women that were afflicted with this particular drug, whether it had been heroin or crack cocaine, whatever it may have been, it was a choice. Now, there's no question you can talk in groups of people, and they say, but somebody made that choice to start on that drug. Well, that is true. But once you have crossed the threshold of thinking about it, and you then engaged in the activity of using an opioid, you now lose control of what your next decision is going to be. The opioid receptors inside of your brain are overpowering. They will control you. You will do whatever you have to do to feed that hunger, the hunger for that high. You will chase it. It is statistically proven, and it's very concerning to me. It should have been concerning to all of us for decades, but I will at least say that I'm very grateful that we have finally reached a point that we are addressing the issue. We've acknowledged it to be a disease. Even though many people won't hold people accountable for a disease, we will hold people accountable for their efforts in recovery, meaning we will help you. We will give you support. We will give you mentorship. We will give you whatever it takes to help you get on that path of recovery and stay in a long-term sober environment. But that responsibility and accountability has to then fall on the individual. So help us help you. Let's get you clean and sober. Let's get you to where you can make good cognitive decisions. And then, and only then, can we then work on long-term sobriety. So I have to, again, praise the probation department, the district courts that are doing a tremendous job under the DA as far as diversion, taking those nonviolent drug offenders, allowing them to seek treatment and not putting them in a hard jail cell. And it is taking place now. Even though the drug court isn't fully up and running, this diversion is taking place in every courthouse, I believe, in Hamden County.
Councilor Lopez?
Thank you for coming down, Mr. Koshi. I have a few questions for you. I know that Eddie have been spending a lot of time down in South Holyoke, but I would like to see more. I mean, you have a lot of our people there incarcerated, but I would like to see more prevention with teenagers and parents, like a one-on-one class. Because I mean, you're doing a great job. There's no question about that. But I think that we're lacking that type of education before people get to you. I'd rather keep them out if we're able to provide that type of education. I know Eddie's doing great with the basketball and all that stuff, but we need like a class or something where people will go down to the jail. They will see exactly what is really being there for 24, 48 hours, making sure that their eye, they see everything. Are you planning on doing anything like that in our neighborhood, or?
Yeah, Counselor, it sounds like you're looking for maybe like a Scared Straight program or a program of education. Now, the only issue, the reason why we got away from Scared Straight probably about maybe about 7-8 years ago was statistics came back that say that you can't scare somebody straight because what happens is especially in Hamden County, and this is hopefully this comes out right, we're a very safe institution. We're a very safe and clean institution to do time, and it's conducive to successful recovery. So when people come in, sometimes they look at us and they go, this isn't that bad. I could do time here. I could do 6 months. I could do a year. And that becomes a deterrent on the other side. But to answer your question, I am absolutely open to working with yourself, with Eddie, to put some type of educational program that we could bring people in, educate them to substance abuse, to gangs, gang involvement, to physical violence, and then explain to them the ramifications and the potential consequences if they choose to go down that path. But I would tell you that what we are doing in the city is one thing we do with the school, especially Morgan School, is we have movie nights. We have parties in the park. We have go back to school days that we've had hundreds of kids and parents come. And what I am so proud about the work that Eddie's doing and the city of Holyoke and the police department's doing is they're re-engaging the parents in the city. The parents are getting involved in their kids' activities. They're going to the Boys and Girls Club to watch the basketball games. They're going to the movie nights. They're going. Let's see where I went down to. We had an event right around Christmas time where they had Santa Claus come, and there was hundreds of kids there, and the parents are taking part of that activity. And to me, one of the things I ran a campaign on was my job is to help make better mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters, husbands and wives out of the people that are doing time in our custody. And if we can do that, we've done something for them, and we've done something for the community. So I feel that the work that we're doing in the police department and all the officials in Holyoke are doing by re-engaging the parents with the kids in after-school activities and weekend activities and going to the park, that we're making and we're helping to firm up those parental responsibilities, and we're getting better mothers and fathers, brothers and sisters and husbands and wives. So to your point, I am absolutely open to doing more programming. That's our success. But I would say to you that we should be proud of the gains we've made, and through the statistics that I read earlier, every year in the past 5 years, the people coming from the city of Holyoke to jail has decreased, and I have to salute you for that.
And my last question, and I will take you on that because I would like to we're losing a lot of teenagers. I mean, and they're ending over there with you. I mean, when we see 13, 14 years old, that is a problem. And so I'm going to get back to you and see how, with some ideas, and see if that's something that we can put together. My last question to you is, I know that you employ a lot of people there. What are the opportunities for our people in Holyoke to apply? If there's any opening, any jobs that people, if there's any effort that information is getting to the community that they can apply for a job?
They absolutely can apply. We have a website every job gets posted on. We're in the process right now of running an academy of about 30 correctional officers. We'll have another academy, hopefully, with a budget that will come in hopefully shortly. We will start one of those processes around August, September. One thing I can assure you that will continue in my office that Sheriff Ash has set the groundwork and the framework to do is that our population of men and women, correctional officers and staff, will resemble the population in which we serve. The cultural diversity, the amount of cultural and ethnic diversity inside of our workforce is paramount to successful reentry efforts. You have to look across the table a lot of times and see somebody that looks like yourself to say, I can be him, I can be her, I just need to do the right thing. So we're very, very cognizant of our hires and making sure that we represent not just a workforce of professionals, but a workforce of professionals that have the diversity of the 23 cities and towns in which we serve. So anytime, just look on our website. The jobs are posted. You come in, you have an interview, and we're looking for good men and women. That's all I'll tell you. I'm looking for good men and women to come in and be part of our department. Where they come from, who sponsors them, doesn't matter to me, as long as we believe they'll do a good job.
Thank you. Councilor Tallman?
Thank you, Sheriff, for coming down, and welcome to our great city here. And it was good to hear the words that it's a team effort. The city officials and the mayor, the police chief, to do things to try to keep things in check in our community. You talked about earlier, and it's something I see because I work outdoors and I've been working out in Holyoke for over 30 years, seeing people. Your crews out there working, whether it's picking up trash, fixing buildings, cutting grass. Could you just touch on that a little bit and tell me the amount of people you have out here each day and what that actually does for the individual doing that kind of work to try to get them back on track?
Yeah, what we have is we have 2 full crews that are here. We have one that's a female crew of about 5 to 6 offenders that come out, and then we have a male crew that comes out as well, and work with the DPW and the Housing Authority. But that's just the crews that are signed out every day and the work that they're doing. On top of that, we're always open to doing community projects, city cleanups, and things like that. But what I think is so important about the restitution part of our job is that many of these men and women incarcerated horrified, terrorized, vandalized, and victimized our communities. So while they're in custody, it's a great opportunity to have them take accountability for their actions and then get them back into the frame of mind of cleaning some of the vandalizing that they've done. So we have a graffiti remover, we clean shrubs, we'll pick up trash, or we'll do beautification projects. It's about taking some ownership of doing good in the neighborhoods that, unfortunately, some of them did not do so good. So we just finished a project in Springfield. It was a cleanup Springfield day, and we had about 7 crews that were out there, upwards of about 35 to 40 men and women, and we'd be more than happy to help you coordinate a cleanup Holyoke day, and you'll have all 7 of those crews with our staff to help you do that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great question, Pete. I know that there's a Holyoke cleanup day on Saturday, May 20th. So and we're joined by Councilor Nelson Roman. I'll let you speak in a second, but I'm sure you got a couple of questions for the Sheriff Nelson. But that's really good. Sheriff, I just wanted to Because people they're going to ask me some questions, so I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm sure you know these stats. 920 males are incarcerated. How many women are at the women's jail?
250.
And now, is that?
It's 5 counties: Worcester, Hamden, Hampshire, Franklin, Berkshire.
And
Over 50% of the women come from, believe it or not, Worcester County.
And at the Ludlow facility, so 920 men are incarcerated right now. Boy, that's just a really big number. Is that the max population you can have there, Sheriff?
No, our facility can hold much more if we get a waiver, which we did back in about 2006. At one point, we had over 2,000 people behind the Ludlow fences. So you can see there's been a substantial drop in population of incarceration. Now, there's reasons for that. One, to what Councilor McGovern said, I'd like to believe we're doing some pretty darn good work, and we're getting people to get out of jail and stay out of jail. Two, there's been diversion taking place for the substance abuse, nonviolent offenders that are going to treatment beds over incarceration. And three, what you're seeing too is a lot less of the petty crimes. Unfortunately, you are still seeing a rise at times in the violent crimes. So what we do is, on a pretrial status, we'll hold people, and then when they're convicted, they go upstate. So our population has decreased substantially in a 10-year period.
Actually, I was interested in the stats, and I was jotting down as many as I could, Sheriff, because those, I think all the stats you brought up are pretty meaningful. Just one I didn't quite catch were when you were reflecting, the drug pop, but 9, I think you said 9 are incarcerated right now, or for that period you referenced for marijuana. May have been 7 for distribution, might have been 2 for possession, is what you were saying. 9.
Yeah.
Then the numbers for, say, out of the 920 or 1,000, whatever the number is right now, that are there for, the harder drugs, heroin and cocaine. What's the raw numbers for that you have it for the stats that you referenced, Sheriff?
Well, what we do is the number that I use when I go around and speak is that 87% of everybody come to us with a substance abuse issue. It may not be their crime, but they have that issue. So we seek that out in their assessment, in their evaluation. Out of those 87%, 37% also have a co-occurring disorder, which is mental health. If you look at our entire population, 48% has come to us with mental health issues. So what we've watched grow over the past decade and a half is the number of people that come to us with mental health issues, coupled with the substance abuse issue, which we consider that co-occurring disorders, and it makes it very difficult to begin treatment because you have to treat one of them to stabilize, and usually it's the mental health one needs to be stabilized first, so you can get the individual in a frame of mind, in a position where they can make good cognitive decisions. Then we can institute and start to implement the substance abuse education and treatment. The problem is the average stay for any male in our system at Hamden County is between 6 and 8 months. That's not a lot of time. The average stay for a female in county corrections at the women's facility is about 5 to 6 months. So we got a small, quick turnaround to implement and stabilize many, many issues. And on top of those immediate issues that we have when people are incarcerated in our custody, then we have to start to work on the issues. I call it the 3-legged stool when they're released from jail, which is, do they have a job, do they have a home plan, and do they know where to go for their wraparound services? Those are the 3 legs of the stool that if you can keep those issues satisfied, your potential for long-term recovery, your potential for not reoffending increases tremendously. Lose one of those legs, and the stool's going to fall. And that's why we're working diligently with our aftercare incarceration support service department to make sure that we build in some type of catch basin for the people who do fall do relapse, because part of recovery is relapse. And it's not like Chutes and Ladders. You don't get to the end of the board game, be one spot away, hit the wrong number, and you slide all the way back down to the beginning of the game. So we got to build in catch basins there. So if you relapse, you hiccup, you lose your job, you start to use again, you have a blowout with a family member, that you immediately come over to our aftercare center. We get you some type of, whether it's anger management classes, it could be a substance abuse, could be a detox, could be another opportunity for a job, so you don't slide all the way down to ground zero. You're picked up, you're caught, and you start to move forward again before you have to go down the path of another incarceration.
So besides the 2 prisons, how many total other programs would you are run by the Sheriff's Department?
Gee, Chairman, that's a great question. We have over 100 programs. How many are we utilizing right now? Probably around 35 to 40, and it's a circuit, because what we see through decades is that the crimes change, the inmate type of inmate, the demographics, the age change, but everything comes full circle. So we don't throw them away, we shelf them. We pick out through statistics and evidence-based programming, what's working and what's not. That's why when I went to Boston and went fighting for funding, I said, look, I'm not here as a new sheriff. I'm here I'm a newscaster. I'm here to bring you our report card. Here's what we do. This is who we impact, and this is how we do it. And here's the evidence-based statistics on what we're doing. We have the lowest recidivism rate, not just in the Commonwealth, but one in the country. It's due to the amount of intensified reentry we do. It's due to the support mechanisms we put in place. So really, I'm a newscaster. I'm just bringing the news to you. You know, here's my report card. Here's the department's report card, and I've been met with such great reception on those things.
Officer Sullivan?
Thanks. Again, Sheriff, so you bring in quite a few people that already have a substance abuse problem. They're on heroin. Once they're in, do they go cold turkey, or are they put into a methadone or Suboxone program?
Great question.
And it'd be 2 parts. And then when they're released, are they already weaned off of the methadone? Are they still on it? Are they given referrals to? You know where I'm going.
I'll tell you,
Yeah.
that's a fantastic question. Right now, we are in the beginning stages of a medically assisted treatment, becoming a medically assisted treatment facility. So with the methadone, we are getting our licenses with the DPH, with the DMH, with public health. And what we are doing is we're going to bring people that are coming to us on methadone, and we are going to continue them in this medically assisted program. What did we used to do? We used to wean them off of it. And what we would find that by the time it took to wean somebody off, then they get the urge again, and they get back into the community, they were relapsing at a very high rate, and it was very, very dangerous as far as for their safety. Suboxone is not what we're using right now, even though Suboxone is what's being used a lot in the community. We are going to utilize the methadone. We are actually fighting every day against Suboxone that gets smuggled into the facility by people that are coming in from court, because to some extent they still receive their high. So that's an issue we're looking at. But we are going to continue to move forward on our medically assisted treatment program. It makes no sense to have somebody who's doing well that doesn't come to us with a substance abuse issue, but comes to us with a criminal issue that has been doing better on the substance abuse side of things, then wean them off, and all of a sudden they fall victim back into the life of substance abuse. So that's, to answer your question, we are doing that now. We are also offering the Vivitrol shot to offenders that leave incarceration. We have started that. We have had over 130 people get the Vivitrol shot. Right now, I think we have about 21 active cases. They receive their first shot while they're incarcerated. Then in the next 26 to 30 days, they'll receive their next shot, and then so on and so forth. The Vivitrol is also being used tremendously by parole.
Sheriff, what is that? What's a
A
Vivitrol?
Vivitrol shot is a shot that it's a blocker. So if you're a heroin user, an opioid user, it will block the effects of it. So it doesn't bode you well to even shoot up or to engage in that illicit drug, because you're not going to get the high from it. So it will do that for a course of, and work well from 1 to about 25 to 26 days. The 27th, 28th, and 29th day, you need to re-up your shot because you could start to get some effects. I'm not a medical doctor. I don't know if it can be harmful if you overuse heroin trying to push it through the blocker. I have heard that it's a very good option for people going back into the community, but I also heard it can be also a detriment too. So this is also, I think we're at a stage of seeing what works and what doesn't with these two treatments that are out there.
Yeah. So, we're having a lot of discussions around the opioid epidemic, and it seems like a lot of it's coming from prescription cases and being prescribed through doctors, through legitimate sources. Would you, knowing that piece of it, is it possible to put a number to how many just graduate? Is there a such thing as a gateway drug where you think it just escalates to this abuse, or is it coming from something else?
I believe in gateway substances. We could have a debate all day long. I just was down in Boston and testified at the marijuana committee, policy committee. And my testimony was simply this, and I think you can use it for alcohol, tobacco, and marijuana. If you are wired with addictive tendencies in your side of you, in your body, in your makeup, in your DNA, and you start to engage in these type of uses, whether it be through alcohol, tobacco, marijuana, there is a good potential you can continue to move yourself progressively towards harder substance drugs usage. So my point is simply this. We've already taxed alcohol. We've already taxed tobacco. We've never had legalization of marijuana. Whether we're pro or against it, it's irrelevant. It's here. As a sheriff, I'm not a policy maker. I'm a policy enforcer. I do believe we can also be policy influencers, but at this point of the game, it's already been decided that legalized recreational use of marijuana is going to move forward. I'm asking the state to tax it, to put at least another additional 5% tax on it and earmark that money for the first time ever. It's never been a revenue source anywhere. And earmark that money for substance abuse treatment and education for public and private entities. I think somewhere along the lines they were talking about it could generate upwards of $25 to $30 million in the course of a year. It's a heck of a lot more than $2 million to try to take a run at this opioid crisis. And I just say this, it's about being responsible to the citizens of the Commonwealth. I am not saying if you smoke marijuana or you drink a beer or you chew tobacco that you're going to be a hardcore drug addict. But I am going to tell you that when you engage in these type of activities, the percentage or the number of people who will not be able to control their behaviors because of their addictive tendencies is going to increase. We'd be foolish not to be proactive. We talked about proactive approaches. What are we doing on the front end? It'd be foolish for us not to be proactive and start to generate a revenue source and some type of treatment and education for what's about to come forward on this, because there's no question medication, pain medication, leading to, and why do people leave pain medication and go to heroin? It's very simple. Economics. A pill on the street is $25. A bag of heroin on the street is $3 to $5. And when you have put your family through the ringer, you've got caught stealing, you've got caught pawning your valuables, your wife, your mother, your father, whoever it is, your significant other finds out that you've been sneaking around and doing pills, you can't afford it anymore. You don't have the money to do it. But you can go collect 100 cans, cash them in, and then run down and purchase a bag of heroin. So that's one thing that I think that, when you talk about reducing the stigma, it's very important that we let people know that if they need help, they need to come to us, and we will help them seek a detox bed, a transition bed from detox, and then get them on the path to long-term recovery. One thing we're very proud of at the Sheriff's Department is on Mill Street, and I want to thank the City of Holyoke for temporarily housing us with our addiction center in Holyoke. We have now up to full functionality on Mill Street in Springfield. It's a 154-bed facility. It is state-of-the-art, and it would not be in place today if it wasn't for the great citizens of Holyoke welcoming us in to continue to have the program going. We had a great 2 years over there, and we're very, very grateful. But these are the things that are, to me, very exciting about the work we do. I believe my first 6 years I will be judged on the opioid crisis, unequivocally. We have a very good handle on how to do incarceration and rehabilitation. We've learned from the best, Mike Ash. We got a very professional staff of about 800 people that are from clinicians to case managers to correctional officers to maintenance to food service to nurses to doctors. You name it, we got it. We know how to do corrections. We know how to effectively incarcerate and bring people back to the community and re-enter them. Where I think I'll be judged is in the next 6 years on this opioid crisis. What type of impact, what type of mark are we leaving on helping to slow this crisis down? Because when I first started my campaign, 4 people a day were dying in the Commonwealth. We're up to 5. It hasn't gone down, it's gone up. When you add the fentanyl, the synthetic fentanyl, these men and women, these kids that are engaging in this type of behavior, they are playing Russian roulette every time they engage in this activity. And the scary thing is that they know about it, but it's so powerful. It takes full control of you, that as much as you know that could be the last time you engage in this activity because there's a bad batch out there, still, people can't say no, and they still engage. And that's something we have to try to figure out how we can get through to these men and women, these young kids, to say you need help, and you need help now, because the next time you engage in this activity could be the last.
I want to say, Sheriff. Oh, sorry, Mike.
That's all right. I completely agree with your sentiments on people with addictive tendencies. I fully support the idea of the taxation on it and using the funds in such a manner. And I would, if I had my way, if I had any clout in the state, we'd take it a few extra steps and really put it to the tobacco industry and also to the alcohol industry. And the tax money's already there, and it's I don't think the right proportions are going into it being recognized, addiction being treated as a disease on that side either.
Counselor, know that I was speaking with the Lieutenant Governor the other day, and when I go down to Boston, I'm not a politician. I never was. I never ran for office. I'm a 24-year correction professional that now has the esteemed honor of being your sheriff. Let me use my platform to speak on behalf of the 23 cities and towns in Hampden County. I don't need to go to Boston and make friends. I need to go to Boston and be heard. We need to be heard. And I will say this, Western Massachusetts is one of the driving communities in substance abuse recovery. We have some tremendous, Dr. Roos, Dr. Pody, we have people involved in Learn to Cope and the support mechanisms that are here. We're doing a tremendous job here. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts, as bad as it is in our Commonwealth, and it's bad, we're one of the driving forces around the country on what to do with substance abuse and the opioid crisis. As bad as we are, we're still trying hard and diligent to do the right thing and try to find out what's going to work. I don't know what your thoughts on that are, Joe, but I'm very proud of the work we're doing. It's just not enough, you know.
Councilor Lopez?
I'm okay, yeah, but let me ask you a question. I just want to, how much it costs to have an inmate for a whole year? I just want to find out how much I was paying.
Hold on to your seat, okay? It costs between 48 $150,000 per inmate. It's a lot of money.
A lot of money. Councilor
How
Wine?
many do we have from
Oh, sorry.
Sorry, I know you
It's okay,
mentioned
no,
this.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I just want to find out how many folk from Holyoke are there in Ludlow. Do you have that?
How many from Holyoke?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned that.
Yeah, the numbers from Holyoke, well, it's less than this because I brought a 2-year statistic. So I had about 820 for the past 2 years. So it's probably, remove a third of that. So it's probably right now about 500, 550.
Okay.
But I can get you an accurate number.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Mon?
Thank you so much, Sheriff. It's good to see you again. I apologize for my tardiness. I was actually down with Eddie Case. He was having a Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative meeting, so good work. I was there with my colleague from the school committee, some members of the community, stakeholders. We were at Morgan School, so I apologize to my committee members. That's where I was. I do have some amazing questions for you, and I thank you so much for taking the time to be here. Congratulations on your recent victory and for being our new sheriff. Specifically with regards to follow up on some of the questions that Councilor Lopez just asked, and I know this was a 2010 statistic, but the Massachusetts Department of Corrections in 2010, per 10,000 adult men that were released back into the community, 37% were coming from the city of Holyoke. That's a pretty big chunk of the population. So just in correlation to that percentage and looking at the overlining maps of Holyoke where poverty and those marginalized, you were talking about economics, what specifically, or, and I would love for you to expound a little bit about this, specifically how this started, for the viewers at home, what specific targets or future plans does your administration have for targeting? That's a pretty substantial number, 37% according to 2010 Massachusetts Department of Corrections number, specifically in relationship to Holyoke.
Yeah, well, first and foremost, what Eddie's doing is making a difference. And I say Eddie. It's Eddie's face, it's Eddie's passion, it's Eddie's voice, but it's the city of Holyoke collectively. And really what we're doing to change those demographics of who's coming in and the amount of the people that are coming to jail is simply education. It's about getting to the grassroots, getting to the youth, Morgan School, as you just mentioned, and getting them to understand that the gang life is not the life that people lead it to believe. It's having people like Ed and the police department showing the youth in the community that striving to be a police officer, a firefighter, a school teacher, correctional officer, somebody that's a caregiver and a helper is a very great way to go about moving forward in life. And I think we're doing that. I mean, we have watched and witnessed since the originally starting as the South Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative, now to the Holyoke Safe Neighborhood Initiative, we've watched the dropout rate in Holyoke High School decrease. And to your point, Counselor, earlier, before you got here, I was mentioning a statistic that you mentioned 2010. Since 2010, 11, the amount of people coming from Holyoke to jail has dropped every single year since then. And there's a lot of reasons for it. We don't have to, but I think some of it is, I know some of it's the impact of the community work that's going on. I'd like to believe a lot of it is the post-release supervision that probation and parole are providing. I want to believe a lot of it's the work we're doing at the Hamilton County Sheriff's Department, but the bottom line is it's decreasing. That's the goal. And the other thing is this, and I mentioned this at the forum and the training this past week. Nobody's doing this alone. Nobody's doing this alone. The days of don't come into the city, let us do our own thing, we'll take care of it ourselves. I'm so proud that those days are gone. People are reaching out. Their hands are open. Their minds are open. They want help. They want collaboration. Together, we can accomplish more. Alone, we're never going to get to the end. So I do think that's another thing, that there's been an open embracing of collaborative efforts through community agencies, through law enforcement, through mental health, through all the wraparound service components that affect everybody's day-to-day life. And unfortunately, sometimes in the inner city, there's more issues. And it's important that we get to the root of the issue and not just the cause of the action. When the police department starts coming to the same house over and over again because of a domestic violence call, but what they really dig deep and they find out that the person's either an alcoholic or they're a substance abuse user, and if they could get the person off the substance abuse or off of the drinking, those domestic violence issues, those physical issues, they go away. So it's not just that the person is physically hurting somebody or mentally or emotionally hurting somebody. What's the cause of the problem? Dig to the root of the problem, take care of the root of the problem, and then the calls stop. And I think that that's something that the city of Holyoke is doing extremely, extremely well with their police department and all their support agencies.
Thank you. Just two more questions for you, Mr. Sheriff. I really appreciate it. Like I said, currently through the state legislature, and I know you said you're not a politician, but you just ran a very effective campaign, and we would love for you to lose your platform. So currently in the state legislature, there's a bill in the House and the Senate to currently reform minimum sentencing laws in the state of Massachusetts. I would just like to hear your perspective, being the chief sheriff on town. Do you support these measures to reduce minimum sentencings in the state of Massachusetts?
I do, and let me explain a little bit on what I'm talking about. For non-violent drug offenders, I'm in full support. For anything that comes in front of a judge, I want the judge to have a better discretion to divert those non-violent folks. But in the same breath, you have to look at it, and I look through every one of the minimum mandatory charges. For stalking, no, I don't. For murder, obviously I don't. For those violent type of crimes that scare, intimidate, and frighten people in the community, I think that there has to be accountability. So yes, I do support prison reform. I support it in moving forward. I support racial disparity. I understand, I see it firsthand. A crime committed in the city of Holyoke or Springfield is yielding a sentence or a longer sentence, or if a sentence at all, over somebody in Ludlow or Agawam or Southwick. I see that. So does there need to be work done there? Absolutely. And I will be there, and I will be speaking on behalf of the Pioneer Valley Project and supporting them on those efforts. But I think the sheriff's very unique. The more people realize that the sheriff is about holding the offenders in our custody accountable and responsible, but also giving them an opportunity at a second chance, third chance, whatever it may be, to go back to the community and get it right and to be productive citizens rather than a detriment to our community. I also have a responsibility to the citizens of all of our 23 cities and towns, and that is to make sure that they understand that I'm there to protect them. And the people that come to jail have left victims in the community. So it's very important that we know who we're talking about. Let's take a good look at the men and women who are coming to jail, which we do, get to know who they are in their history, and find out how we can help this person be the best person they can be going back to the community. It sounds like the old Army commercial, be all that you can be. But in reality, you would be shocked at the number of people that when we start and we sit down and we just open up our ears and we close our mouths and they talk, the things that they'll say. I went to a graduation Sunday at Holyoke Community College. It was a culinary arts graduation of 11 offenders. They would get brought over to Holyoke on the weekends. They would learn culinary arts, and they produced a nice meal, and they graduated with a certificate. And I ended my speech with them, and I said, look it. I said, I love you. I said, I know people don't use that word anymore. People are afraid. They shy away from it. I use it when I talk to the kids in schools when I'm reading to them. I use that word when I'm talking to adults around the county or anywhere I go. When's the last time some of these men and women have heard the word love, and that they're loved and that people are trying to help them? And I can only tell you that it strikes a chord. It definitely brings people into a place that they haven't been for a long time. So when you talk about the amount of crime, the way that it's just disparaging, I hear you. I do support diversion over incarceration for many, many issues. But on the law enforcement side of things, when it comes to those much more serious ones, I need to protect the community as well.
I agree. Thank you. And just one final question and wrapped up in a statement, then I'll get off. And I thank you again so much for being here. I want to applaud your post services, working with men and women both in Churchill and in South Holyoke. And the minute they call me, like, hey, Nelson, I'm struggling to find a job. I just put them in touch with your office, and someone magically, bing, bang, boom, it's like they're getting help, and they call me back a week later. Thank you so much. The sheriff's office is amazing. So I just want to applaud that whole department and team because they're really doing a bang-up job. I wanted to just kind of highlight, too, within this chamber and here in the city of Holyoke, specifically around looking for jobs, we have a local order that's before us called Fair Chance Order, which would effectively ban the box in the city of Holyoke for anyone who has been formerly incarcerated, if it's, again, nonviolent, to not require them to check off whether they've been convicted of a felony or crime. Only because, again, if you've done your time, you've done your job in your service, and you've come out on the other side, you should be able to apply for a job. So here locally, where that's going to come up in ordinance in the next couple of weeks. So I look forward to, again, hearing your platform and having you come down. But specifically, I just wanted to ask again, because you mentioned some statistics and rates. And so I'd like to know, because according to the 2010 U.S. Census, back then, 47% of the population was Latino. Do you have the demographic breakdown currently of overall?
I can tell you, where was my statistic here? For at least I can tell you what Holyoke is, and I want to say Holyoke. I had it here. When I find it, I'll give it to you. But I did have a Hispanic, and it was extremely high. It was extremely high when it came to the amount, the percentage of people from the city of Holyoke that are incarcerated. I believe it was. Here it is. 74% are coming to us right now from the city of Holyoke. In the past 2 years, 2015, 2016, 74% were Hispanic.
Other than that, thank you so much. Like I said, Sheriff, I really think you're doing a great job so far, hitting the ground running, and I thank you so much for being here this evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And Sheriff, I could just, the answers you've been given this evening are tremendous, and I think you've been straightforward with everybody and very helpful in terms of a lot of what we're talking about. I know statistics are important. You shared yours before Councilor Roman came in. Nelson, you shared yours with us, and I understand them, and they are important. The stats, I think, though, for moving forward is understanding the reentry stats. And oftentimes, and I know this more from the job at work, is a person who is incarcerated or a person who's placed on probation may be a resident of a city, but the crime was committed somewhere else. We also supervise according to where a person lives. And a great example of that is I had a supervising a young fellow for the Greenfield District Court was supervising a young fellow, for a crime that was committed down here because he lived up there. At one point, the chief probation officer called me and said, "Joe, you got to quit sending us all your problem children. And I said, I won't give her name up, but look, Mary, you sent them to us in the first place to commit the crime. Keep them up in Greenfield. We won't have that problem." And the message is, it is regional, and you are Hamden County, and I think we have to recognize that. My question, but I want to qualify before I get to it, is kind of summing up from D'Estato to Nelson to David and Mike and Peter, all the stuff that we've asked you this evening, and I think a lot of it focused on understanding the coalition with the substance abuse issues, but reentry and what do we do with people, and I think we all understand someone needs a job, someone needs education, someone needs, to have that opportunity when they get out. Even when they're on probation, we do the same thing. Twice in my lifetime, the sheriff's office, not counting the community service programs, has had become a stakeholder facility in Holyoke. Once was in 1990, when I think I shared this story with you, when our mayor, Marty Dunn, myself, the auditor, the treasurer, were actually on Wall Street doing a presentation to Moody's when Mike Ash, because that 2,000 limit was way over 2,000, took over the State Armory. And Marty reacted the quickest and was just saying, "I can't believe he's doing it while I'm down in New York." And he got us up at 4:30 in the morning to come home to the Hamden County Commissioners, which were still calling the shots then, to say enough is enough. Well, 1 month later, we learned that takeover of the Armory did two things. The immediate neighborhood adopted it because the sheriff had cruisers driving around, and there was the new public safety element, helpful enforcement type element. The principal of the Amicu school across the street, and this is Diostato's, point, said, we're going to use this as educational. We're going to teach our kids what happens why you go to jail, and what happens when you don't do the right thing. And the positives of what I call the reentry, I think, are focused on that. You talked about what is now Mill Street, which was the geriatric authority, and we knew it was temporary, but it took a while in the neighborhood to accept that and understand it. And I think that's, the former Howard Street. I think it actually started in the old York Street jail, if I remember correctly, but it started with OUI, second-time offenders, and went right into substance abuse, and so well needed. And you said yourself, Sheriff, the beds, the treatment, the money is needed for more and more. Is there anything on the horizon for Holyoke? Because I also like those host community fees and what Diostato said, jobs for Holyoke. When you put a facility in a community, some more jobs are guaranteed to that community. Is there anything on the horizon for us? Anything? I know it has to come down the pike first in terms of money, but is there anything coming our way?
Well, Counselor, that's a great question. I don't have an answer for you right now. Because, and what I mean by that is if we want to discuss a potential partnership and how we can further impact our county in Western Massachusetts, I know I'm open. Right now we have open space in our pre-release center. We have a whole wing that's closed. I'm challenging my staff right now to look at Section 35s, maybe potentially work with the Department of Public Health and the Department of Mental Health and take a look at how could we help impact our community when it comes to Section 35s, or potentially, somebody's a second, you have to go for your OUI classes. You got to go down to Boston. Why can't we do it here? So, yes, I would say that I am absolutely open to having a partnership with the city of Holyoke. The geriatric center was tremendous to us. It is definitely met with structural issues. However, we got what we needed to accomplished in that building. We saved lives. That building over a 2-year period saved people's lives. So there's no question that that building could be utilized again and again. It's strictly, and you know this, it's a funding issue. For anything we do, it takes staff, and you'd have to have the appropriate staff. But I can only tell you, Joe, that I want more. I want to be challenged more. I want to do more. I want our staff to be pushed to the limits as far as being creative on how we can continue to impact the 23 cities and towns. But let's be honest, a lot of attention comes to our cities. You got to look at Springfield, Holyoke, Chicopee. You look at West Springfield. You look at Westfield. These are our cities that need a little bit extra. And what I mean by extra is a little bit more support, collaborative efforts to make sure things are going as well as they could be. But I look at the city of Holyoke, and I know there's a lot of good things going on right now. If we could, I know the mayor would like to do more with us as well. I think we're a good neighbor. I think we've proven wherever we go that we, regardless of the adversity we're met with coming in, that in a very short order, people realize our professionalism, the work we do, and that we will come and make an area better and safer. And we've seen that everywhere we've gone.
Excuse me. I just like to say thank you on a personal level, but also for all my constituents and the importance of the work that you do and the people that work under you do. And I think that's a key, and always, and I think you said it, you started this evening, keeping Holyoke in mind. And Mr. Chairman, there's one thing the sheriff did not talk about this evening, but when the Holyoke St. Patrick's Day Parade Committee combined with the Leprechaun Plunge Committee, a great charitable organization over in Ward 8, he was a celebrity bartender and helped raise money for both of those organizations.
Well done.
Well, and a very skillful celebrity bartender.
Thank you.
I think Joe summed it up pretty well. So thanks, Sheriff, for coming, spending all this time you did, over an hour with us.
Thank you.
I hope you'll come back. So love to hear from maybe one of the doctors that want to come along. That might be a really
Love to
interesting
bring
take.
Dr. Lincoln,
Yeah,
who's in charge of our medically assisted treatment program. He's in charge of our health services. He'd give you very good insight on our substance abuse programming. I'd love to do it.
So thanks, Sheriff. I'll just
Well,
get a motion.
thank you very
Motion
much.
that the order be complied with?
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thanks, Sheriff. Really appreciate it.
I'm going to leave the stats with you guys.
Okay, thank you. Marcos, John, when you have them, okay. Okay, we'll just get a motion to take up number 3, if we could.
Item to make a motion to take up item number 3.
Second.
Okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Let me just read this in while you guys are getting settled, and I don't have to explain how to hit the buttons for you guys and all that, so. So this is order filed by Gladys that the City Council vote to approve the order of taking to acquire by eminent domain a 4,300 square foot parcel located at 515-19 Dwight Street, which for the public is directly across the street from City Hall, for the construction of the Center City Pedestrian Plaza, and to award damages for said taking in the amount of $20,000. And then she goes on to describe the parcel with the assessor's map. And before us we have Marcos Mero, the department head for Office of Planning and Economic Development, John Dijek as his assistant. Marcos and I we were speaking earlier. This is a motion. This is an order that's going to require a public hearing. So we will just have a brief discussion of this now. We will not take a vote on this other than to table. So that's all we can do. But we will table this, and my hope is, I think most have seen the agenda. My hope is that our next meeting will be on June 5th. So if we do table it, we can advertise hopefully for a public hearing June 5th. Marcos, why don't you tell us or John, either one, why don't you tell us what's happening with this parcel?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So the property that we're talking about is 515 Dwight Street. It's right across the street from City Hall, in between a residential building and the city's parking garage. It used to be a pizzeria, is my understanding, and in June of 2006 it suffered a fire. So the structure was taken down, and it's been vacant ever since. Behind it, there is a vacant parcel, which is it's city property, part of the parcel where the garage sits on. And it is also just south of the site where the Bud used to stand. So those 3 parcels, the vacant parcel where the garage is, the former Bud, and this parcel that we're discussing, 515 Dwight Street, which is about 4,300 square feet, is part of a plaza project that has 3 purposes. Its genesis goes back to, I would say, late 2012, when we were doing a look at the Lyman Terrace neighborhood and the possibilities for rehabilitation, not just of the units there, but trying to create a transformative effect on the neighborhood. One of the things that the housing consultants identified was how isolated the neighborhood felt, and that in order to have a large investment have a bigger effect, one of the priorities had to be connecting it through to the broader center city. One of the images that you have in front of you will highlights those major connectors and improvements that can be done in order to improve that quality of place. Most notably, Front Street is already being partly improved by the Lyman Terrace project, but there's also a transportation improvement project also in queue for 2019 that will improve Front Street. So the plaza is part of the one of the red arrows that you see in that graph. On the other page, you can see it's a conceptual that they had some sort of connector. Of course, in that scheme, the Bud was still up, which it's not anymore, and that's why it was it was taken. You'll see that there are some trucks there in that schematic, sort of calling out potentially this could be a place for food trucks or other public events, not just a throughway. Behind, so that's the first purpose. I'll get into the design in a second. The second purpose of the site isn't just having a better connector, but also having better placemaking abilities to have events at the plaza. One of the most notable events is the farmers market that happens every Thursday in Holyoke during the warmer months. Of course, the problem with the farmers market at the moment is that it blocks off High Street, and the northern part of High Street, the businesses suffer greatly during those days because they depend on traffic stopping at their locations. So this can be a place where that can be accommodated, but other events could be accommodated as well. Like we could have any type of cultural event, nighttime movies, that kind of thing. And then the third purpose that this would serve is actually has to do with a site that's not on Dwight Street but on Appleton Street. This committee may remember that there's a small parcel similar in size, slightly smaller, across the street from the YMCA. I'm not sure if you have it in your packet. That parcel has been the subject of a few attempts to sell it as surplus property, and in fact, it has been declared surplus. Most recently, after the last attempt to sell it, our, I don't know what to call them, legal advisors, Siddell and Siddell, discovered a provision in the deed that makes it restricted to any use or sale. It's better known as an Article 97 restriction. That's to say, it was taken for parkland, and by state law, it has a restriction where it cannot be used for anything other than parkland. That provision can be taken off. It requires an act of the state legislature, as long as you follow certain guidelines of the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs. Essentially, the guidelines say you have to replace the land in use, in value, and in size with another comparable piece of land. So, in use, say you're taking a football field, right, and you have a lot of need of providing football services in your community, you would have to replace the football field with another football field, for example. In value, if the land is worth $5, replacing it with land that's similarly valued. And in size, it's self-explanatory. Here we have a small lot that's not really being used, and it's not incredibly valuable. So the third purpose that the acquisition of 515 Dwight Street would have is it could be a sink for this Article 97 restriction. In fact, we would be using it as open space, as a plaza, which would meet the requirements. And that would allow us to free up the use of Lot 14, which is on this other map on Appleton Street. There are 3 abutters that are interested on that lot in order to leverage their property for housing development. Most notably, the committee is familiar with 2 of them because they were before them previously. Someone from Bosco from Parcel 1, Whitman from Parcel 13 around it, and more recently from Parcel 2. Virgilio bought that building, and in order to rehab that one, would also be interested in the parking behind. So in order for us to be able to even consider that one for development, we would have to find a similar sized parcel. This meets the requirements very, very elegantly. So those are the 3 purposes for the acquisition. Of course, the driver being the project back from 2012, in which the committee back, at least in, I want to say 2014, probably was the first time that the committee saw something related to this project with CDBG funding. Before you also have 3 pages that kind of describe what the design is about. You'll see it's mainly a connector from Dwight to John Street with a walkway. It has spaces on the sides where for passive recreation, particularly on the Dwight Street side, and where vendors can locate themselves. Further towards John Street, there is a hardscape on the eastern side. That is on purpose because one of the constraints here is that the snow is taken off the garage and is actually dumped on that area. So it was purposely designed so that could still continue. But it also provides, along with the slope, a very natural way of having some sort of exhibition there with people sitting on the sloped areas. The other pages show kind of the materials that are being used or the style of benches on that grassy slope that would be used. The project has approximately $390,000 in the budget. That's not all for construction. That includes acquisition. It includes design. The construction will come in at around $300,000. We haven't put it out to bid yet, although we are ready to go out to bid soon. Let me see what else I'm missing. Right, so awarding of damages. We're still in friendly conversations with the owner. We've provided the notices to the official owner. We're in conversations with the owner's son in good faith. The award of $20,000 is based off of several appraisals, several that all confirm the value of $20,000. That's about $460 something a square foot, which is kind of a surprise, kind of on the high side, but it is what the appraisals say. And so that has been the offer. I think I'll stop there and. Whatever the chair would like.
Well, yeah, and I'm sure every councilors have a lot of questions about this. So, in the interest of time, knowing that we're going to have a public hearing, I mean, unless it's really urgent, do you want to? Because I think that was. I mean, I took a lot of notes there. I think that was a really good summary, Marco. So I really appreciate that. I mean, I'll entertain a brief question, Joe, because I saw your hand up.
Well, I'm questioning a couple of things that were said tonight, and I guess they are brief.
Well, do you want to get feedback now, or do you want to have throw your questions out and then have Marcos give some feedback on June 5th? Would that be okay?
He's here. I'll be brief.
Okay.
I mean, what's the purpose of the meeting if we're waiting to June 5th to do it?
Sure.
We could have just set up June 5th without Marcus being here.
Sure.
Very quick, Mr. Chairman, very quick. And I get your point, and I agree with it. Just 2 questions, real quick. And I'll do the follow-up, Marcus, but the White Street, I get the correlation, but I was involved with that project. And when we were redoing the park on Appleton Street, Beach and Appleton Street, the property you're talking about there, and we all know what's happened more recently, was the former La Pointe's Market, a 3-story building that could not be, after the fire, could not be because of the size of the lot rebuilt on. The city wanted it and would have taken it by eminent domain to expand the park, but 2 entrepreneurs bought the land, pretended it had some value to it, and tried to hold us, the city, for highway robbery. And the city backed out of that project. When, or can you be more specific, or let me, or find out, when did it take it for parkland? Because it wasn't when we redid the park.
No, and so one of the things is that actually it looked really convoluted. So we should probably touch base.
Please, and I can help you follow up on that. And
because no one understood why it was bought twice, or that's what the document suggested, that the city bought it twice, and it was a while ago.
We were we never voted on it because we were backing off because not the eminent domain, but the fear of a lawsuit and of a price that would make no sense. And Mr. Chairman, my only other question is the Dwight Street property. Are you telling, or you haven't told us, but can you tell us, are the taxes current on that by the owners?
Yes, they are.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, I know other councilors have a lot of questions, so why don't we,
Email Michael.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
okay, yeah, okay, so it's before us now, which is great. So I think we can motion just to table this.
Make a motion to table.
Well, before you get a second on that, I mean, I don't think we need to, because we're not in public hearing now, so we can just table it, but we'll leave it on the table, and then we will ask Ryan to work with you to set up a public hearing. Now, we haven't reached agenda item 5 yet, but I'm hopeful that we'll adhere to that date, but we'll see, which is the 5th.
The 5th, yeah.
So, okay, so,
Motion to table.
Second.
okay, on the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, can I get a motion for number 4, please?
Take a motion to take item up number 4 up the table.
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, okay. Let me read this fast. According to 30B, Holyoke procurement ordinance, City Council considered declaring 3 parcels as surplus property available for disposition. The parcels are identified with the parcel numbers and book and page numbers for registry of deeds. The public should know that the 3 parcels in question are the 3 parcels situated on which the former Holyoke Geriatric is located. There's about 10 acres of slope kind of facing east, if you will, and there's another 1.5 acres on which the congregate house is situated. So, Marcos, what's the latest?
So before you have a map of the Geriatric Authority site. The last time we were here discussing it, it was 2 parcels, and it is now 3 parcels, and I'll explain that. So it seems like there wasn't good consensus around how to move forward on this site, particularly given how the Housing Authority had a 99-year lease with the former Geriatric Authority when it was in operations that put them on the property, which now the city owns I believe by foreclosure of some sort. At the same time, there is a very large piece of land that is potentially partially buildable, but it has a considerable slope that goes all the way to the train line. So the way that we were hoping to proceed was, the first thing we did was we created an A&R, which is essentially creating a new lot line, separating a piece of the property where the congregate house sits from where the main 2 buildings of the Geriatric Authority building sits. What that allows is it increases the options available to you as policymakers and the mayor, which is that we can then, if these 3 properties are declared surplus, we can legally sell them, right? We can legally put them out to an RFP, a request for proposals. And we can follow a method that we did with another site. Some of you were around when we did a request for proposals on Sargent Street for what is 170 and 163 Sargent. So that's the Armory and the site across from the Senior Center, which is where East Hampton Savings Bank is going to be doing their new branch. At the time, the Armory had not self-demolished in the back. It was occupying the entire parcel, and the idea was that anything. So I'm going back to that time period, so you can understand the logic here with the Geriatric Authority. The idea was that anyone who has an interest in the Armory will need parking. On the other hand, someone may not be interested in the Armory at all, may just want another piece of land. So we decided to do a request for proposals that gave folks the options. As long as we give an apples-to-apples options, we could do that. So essentially we said, you either bid on one or the other, or both together. So a similar logic would apply here. We're looking to declare all of these surplus and say you can either bid on all of it together or on pieces of it And the purpose for that is, the question has arose, well, what if all of it together is worth more? Would we be passing up a really great opportunity by just ceding a piece of land where the congregate house is to the housing authority? Now, we could have a lot of really great educated guesses, but until we actually put it out to market, we won't know. So dividing the land is the best way that we can do that. We can put it out to bid, and we can see if there's any interest to do one mega development on all of it, and we figure out how to deal with the congregate house itself. Or we see if the only interest is for the buildings themselves, and not doing anything with the congregate. So that, and in fact, if anyone would want to either do a deal or a transfer to the housing authority, we would have to declare that surplus anyway. So it's kind of advancing all the agendas at the same time until we see what the market's like.
And Marcos, just re-educate us. I think we all know, but just the public too. So we declare a surplus. Mm-hmm. Your office, you and John lead the charge to put it out to bid. When a bid comes in, or bids come in, you evaluate. You take the highest and best use, however the standards. To convey that property out to the bidder, you need a vote of
the city council. Correct.
So you need 2 votes from this body. You need a vote to declare it surplus, and then should you have a bid that's acceptable to your department or meets the standards of the RFP,
right,
it would come back to the city council, and these are 10 votes, 2/3. I want to say transfer of property generally 2/3, but.
I will take your word because I don't remember.
Well, just these questions that they come up often enough to
sure.
Trigger, but it's not, they don't come up, not that often. So it's like I don't remember all of them myself. But I just some counselors are newer than others.
Sure.
Just a good reminder for all of us.
Honestly, we've been fortunate enough to work by consensus so often that I don't know where the line is.
Well, that's nice. That's good. That's they want consensus. Okay, so I interrupted. You want to, or did I?
No. Essentially, I think I've provided the explanation. The line, I could elaborate on why the line is where it is. We wanted to make sure that we weren't creating a non-conforming lot with the existing zoning. Something like not putting the line right on the wall of the congregate house if it were to remain. That to the east and then to the west of the property, just making sure that we had what was a natural partition with what seems to be the site that is being used by the congregate house in case that was a scenario that was going to be undertaken by the city.
Okay, Councilman Tallman.
Yeah. Thanks for coming down. Thanks for explaining everything to us. And I know this came up a couple of years, could have been 5-6 years ago. We tried to market this property, I think, with the slope in the building. And last year we had a meeting. Myself and I think Councilor Bresnan had a meeting with the housing authority, the congregate housing. So that's a little bit of my concern of what happens there. And I mean, as you stated, it has to come back to us. I mean, I'd hate to see something come up where somebody comes in and bids all 3 properties because they're valuable, and then all of a sudden these 18 individuals or families that live there all of a sudden have to have a place to stay. And my question is, with that lease, since the geriatric is no longer there, it's basically owned by the city of Holyoke. Wouldn't the city of Holyoke actually be with the housing authority on that lease? Wouldn't they have to release that? The 99-year lease, that's what I'm concerned with the congregate housing.
Right. I'm not equipped to answer who, if the lease is inherited or what type of tenant rights the folks there have or the housing authority has. I honestly don't know. It's not that I have an answer that
right.
I don't want to share. What I do know and have talked with Matt Mainville about is that anything could be taken down to money, or almost anything, not everything in life. So if for the right proposal, you could have a developer, proposing to make the housing authority whole as well, and they could move those families to somewhere else I don't know what that number is. It may make it may make the whole scenario unplausible or unfeasible. But again, we won't know until we put it out to market. We kind of took the initiative to start marketing this until our friends at the law department reminded us that was probably not a good idea if it's not surplus.
Mm-hmm. But that's my main concern, and I know that's something that hopefully there'll be some discussion with the housing authority, because I know I've talked to Matt on several occasions about the congregate housing, and I hate to see 18 individuals, and several of them are handicapped with their own apartments, because they did have serious concerns about a year and a half ago of losing their basically living arrangements. Mm-hmm. So that's something I think is one of my concerns. But as our chairman said, if it has to come back to the council, and we won't know until it goes out for bid, I just hope there is a dialogue with the housing authority and their lawyers and the city law department that makes sure that we're doing this in the proper, open manner.
Absolutely, yes. We have conversations with Matt Mainville all the time. We have a couple of relationships with him. He's on the board of HEDIC. We work with him on a separate project through the redevelopment authority. So, yes.
Thank you, Council Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you. Marlon, maybe the print's too small for me to see it, but what is the zoning here?
The zoning is RO, residential office.
And is that, now that it's been divided up, all three parcels are in the RO zone?
Yes, they're all in the RO.
So if someone was to buy this and propose putting in a plaza and expansion of what's already going on in that area, it would require a zone change?
Like a commercial plaza, like Barnes and Noble or something like that?
Right.
Oh yeah. You can't do that in an RO.
All right. So right now, this thing going out to bid, it would be for conforming use as to what it is already.
Well, what usually we say is what the zoning is, and we try not to limit it. And we say, if your proposal requires a zone change, just bear in mind that's something that the proponent would have to seek. Now, that doesn't mean that would be a proposal that would garner favor either. That would come before the board. There's a lot of constraints getting to that site. So unless there's a convincing way that also would not destroy the neighborhood, I don't see a plaza being too feasible there, but I've been surprised before.
Yep. But it is going to limit the interest in the property.
Well, so we've had interest in this property already, and none has been for a commercial plaza. It's been for similar uses than it was before. So quasi medical, like the geriatric authority type use that doesn't generate a lot of traffic, that needs a big location. It still has a privileged location if you're serving a large area, right? Like what the geriatric authority was doing or could do. So I would expect that those are the types of proposals that we would get.
Yeah, thanks.
Councilman Gibbon?
Thank you. Marcus, I think the question, Councilor Tomlin's question, is important to have a more concrete answer from the housing authority. It sounds like they're aware about
Yes.
the efforts or the about to be efforts to again market the property, and I think we all understand the need to market the property. For it's land that's going to sit there if we don't find some new owners. And I guess my question is, and I'm not sure if you answered it, but what different types of marketing is the city looking at doing?
So we'd be looking to go we now have a budget to market in bigger publications like the New England Journal of Real Estate that proved to be successful, or at least it's looking like it's being successful with one Cabot. That wasn't something that we could do before. Our budget only allowed us for more regional marketing. The other area where what we want to do is, because of the type of zoning and the neighborhood where it sits in, we would want to do some outreach to some industry groups around, so like the care facility and that kind of stuff, to see if we can garner some interest that way.
When you say medical, and I realize what the former building was about, but are you looking at something that is taxable or something that would be a non-taxable entity?
No, taxable is always the preference, and even when it's a nonprofit, I mean, if they were charitable, we would a standard provision in the RFP is that they have to pay at least 50% of the taxes on the site.
What other uses is the city thinking about marketing for besides medical? And
Well, the other uses that would be allowable in an MRO is residential uses. Now, frankly, residential development in suburban areas like these is rarer nowadays in this area. You do have some dense residential development in the downtowns of Springfield, Chicopee, Holyoke. Of course, you've seen those. The market is calling for those. Single unit housing is not selling as well in suburban areas. You can think of, Michelle Lane is kind of wrapping up now after several years. There's still some off of Route 5 that has land that it's half undeveloped after many years as well. But it may be a possibility that what's the building on the other side of the street there? Yeah, maybe Devonshire wants to do residential units there. So we can reach out to a couple of large property managers like that. There are a few in the region to see if there's any interest in that regard. Of course, that would mean that the tax payment isn't on the commercial; it's on the residential end of the split.
the tax benefit, the bang for your dollar also is when you build up. And is there any look at high-end condos, hotel, with the top of this hill and the view that's there? There's some marketing opportunities, I think, that could at least be pushed out there.
Going too high up is kind of very restricted in the city of Holyoke. When you look at the zoning, right now the two zones that allow you to go highest up are both industrial. That's something that we're hoping to change with a retail corridor zone. The industrial general zone will allow you to go 4 stories. The industrial park will allow you to go, there's another one that allows you to go, I think, 7 stories, something like that. So it would require zone change. High-end condos, frankly, I other than in a few niche areas in more downtown walkable areas, you don't see any around here. So my estimation would be that would garner no interest here.
I can introduce you to a lot of former Holyoke residents who are living in Ward 8 condos, if you'd like to get my drift. Be happy to have a tea, and we can talk about the need for retiring in Holyoke and the right setting. And I think the condos on Route 5, I'm not going to, it's not up for us to judge. I think these are private sector people who are looking at their investment and the way they want to do it. It's not always the way that I would do it, but I think the view at the top of this, little hill here is incredible. And when I say high, I don't mean crazy high. I mean, People's Savings Bank. That's, something that, if you've ever been to the top floor of the bank up by the mall, it's incredible. And this is the end of the mountain range, and, there's a lot of marketing, it's the beginning of the Berkshires. A lot of people don't realize that. Councilor Bartley's father taught me that one. Holyoke Community College is the beginning of the Berkshires. We like to say it's the beginning of Holyoke, but,
No, that's I'll tell you, that was, you made some nice remarks there, Joe.
But-
You got, no, keep going.
No, I'm in favor of making them surplus for all the right reasons. I'm just trying to encourage some innovative thinking about marketing. And I do agree, the neighborhood has to be taken into consideration, but our big picture has to be taken into consideration. And, not being able to build up might be one of the reasons that we've hit the ceiling so quickly.
Councilor Mon?
Yes, thank you. I'm going to vote in favor of declaring the surplus as well. And again, with all the great points my colleague just make about understanding the community and the neighborhood, I'd like to applaud this body. Lower Westfield Road going around down the hill for the neighbors and the residents is a nightmare already, because those not wanting to come either up Route 5 by the Kmart or coming off the highway are coming up that back road, and it's really dangerous. There's no sidewalks for youth. So we have to invest as a city in Lower Westfield Road coming around because that is just a nightmare, absolute nightmare. So I'm going to be, watching this development very seriously to see what those proposals are, because I would like, in order for it to go hand in hand, we have to invest. And I applaud my colleagues here. We voted unanimously as a body to expand and correct that road because it is just a nightmare. And I know my constituents living back there, there's a bee farmer actually right behind this development. So she would be very interested to see what goes in there. But I'm going to vote to declare the surplus. I think this is a win-win. I'd like the 3 model approach because I think that it's going to be a win-win, but I'm cautiously optimistic. I would like to see more investment on the Lower Westfield Road coming around down towards Route 5 into Ingleside Street. Thank you.
Councilor Lopez?
Marcos, I want to get more information from Holyoke Housing, how much that house cost to build, all that information, because I'm pretty sure that someone will have to pay for it. And I just want to see how much money that is. And even start planning now and start looking for another parcel where they can move. Because I think that's a prime location to market. And if we're able to find another location that we can move or let them move or something that we don't have to pay a lot of money, it will make sense. But I want to see that information before I support something like this. Thank you.
Yeah, that makes sense, Councilor. I mean, if I had my 2 cents, the no-name park at Maple and Resnick and the Jackson. I assume that park has a name. It must have one.
Yes.
I don't know. I just call it the no-name park because there's no signs out there. There is not one sign out there labeling that little park. But to me, that would be a ideal place. And just so councilors know, because the congregate model in public housing has been long ago forgotten about. I mean, that's something that came and went 35 years ago, and that is not the use that's now developed by few, if any, public housing authorities use we're joined by Councilor Leahy. Councilor, welcome. Few, if any, other public housing authorities use the congregate model.
Well,
Why?
David,
Go ahead, Councilor.
the other question is that I'm pretty sure that Holyoke Housing took some money from the state. Are we obligated to pay that money back? So I want to see all that information.
I'm going to suggest to you that there's probably money's due, but who would pay? Would
that's
a
what I
developer
wanna-
come in and pay? If that is a pretty prime piece of real estate.
Well, I want to find out before because if we have to pay, I don't know,
Well, there's only one way to find out,
$200,000 back to
Counselor,
the
right?
state.
There's only one way to find out. So,
Yeah.
any other questions for Marcos? Marcos, you want to make a comment, sir?
Well, just to, as we wrap up, I just want to reiterate, declaring the surplus doesn't preclude anything. It just allows for additional options. So, that we may well be here back again discussing that because there's a proposal that would impact it. We may not have any proposals, right? And then we may have to go back to market, or we may have a proposal that doesn't include the congregate house. So.
Yep. Are we all set, gentlemen? Would somebody like to make a motion?
Motion to approve item number 4 and declare the property surplus.
Second.
Under discussion? Hearing none. On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have just recommended to the City Council by 5-0 vote to declare that parcel surplus. Marcos, John, as always, thank you.
Motion to take up item number 5. Oh, that's our next meeting.
On the motion, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Next meeting, gentlemen, what is the 5th of June a possibility for you? Mm-hmm. And I just want to tell you, there's. I blanked it off with our president, so he's okay with that. But that meeting could be it could be an arduous one.
Any chance we can do it on the 12th?
The 12th. I suppose there's always a chance. Why is that, Joe? You have a commitment on the 5th?
Well, it's my 35th wedding anniversary.
That's a commitment.
It is Monday. I mean, we haven't talked yet, but.
Well, I try to keep our meetings on Mondays now. Have you noticed that?
No. I'm talking about the anniversary.
If you don't,
happens to
6:30
fall on
counts
Monday.
for you.
6:30, yeah, I like that.
So Monday's for you and 6:30 is for you. Can we?
I make it back to 6 if you want. I'm off the list, so I can get here at 6. I'm not working overtime anymore, so.
Okay, so June 12th.
I know I won't be in town, Counselor. I'm just letting you know ahead of time.
You're not around as well?
I'll be in D.C., yeah. It's okay.
June 5th. No. We'll celebrate on June 4th.
All right.
I might not be in a good mood. I might be a little
I
tired.
blocked it off when you sent the email, so.
Okay, so. Well, I appreciate discussion. I mean, so I'd rather have a full committee myself, but.
5th, yeah.
Okay. All right. So June 5th is. Well, we don't have to take a vote. Oh, we can. If we accept it now, we don't need to take a vote on it, but.
No, would that be the public hearing?
Well, we'll have several public hearings that night.
I'll settle that night. Okay.
Several. There's going to be one for Smith's Ferry. There's going to be one for number 3 that we took up. There's one for a non-conforming use at 24 Old Ferry, I think. So there's at least 3. And I want to suggest to you that we're going to have one guest. She is an order Councilor Jordan filed, and she wants to come in on the 5th. So, but I think that'll be a quick one. Nick was long. I mean, that was an hour plus.
Yeah.
But I think hers is, I can't remember the topic, but we'll have one speaker, that one guest speaker.
Public hearings, people will be notified. Is that something in the paper? We got time to get that in the paper?
Oh, yeah, June 5th, yeah, we set the date now, yeah, ample time. Yeah, I think they need 2 weeks, so we're okay. Okay, so, yeah, we have a motion. We're all in favor to take June 5th?
Aye.
Okay. All right, one more motion, I'll do it.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
On the motion, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned, thank you.